I love the Ys series so much, and that's why Ys 10 Nordics quickly became my most anticipated JRPG release of 2024. The Ys series does something unique for me, something special that isn't replicated anywhere else. The sense of adventure, the urge to explore, the mystery and the timeless music, this series has it all, and as such when Ys 10 was announced for localization far earlier than I ever thought, might I add, it went straight onto my bucket list. Unfortunately for me, NIS America reached out and gave me a code which I was happy to accept, so thank you to them for doing so. This was for the PC port, so expect the work of Durante to be on display here. The port is loaded with options for any PC build, as we've come to gratefully expect from his and PH3's excellent work. Now, when a game has so much expectation put upon it, it is for a good reason, but it can very easily become its curse too. How often have we played games that just don't meet the lofty heights that we envisioned? Well, from my experience, there have been many that fall under that category. Saying that, Ys 10 Nordics was not one of them. It was pretty much everything I wanted from Adol's newest adventure. An entry that also represented a new beginning for the Ys series in some ways, both in terms of visuals and gameplay. At present, this is my game of the year, and it's going to take something truly special to pip it in the final, 3 months of 2024. And in this video, I want to tell you why I rate it so highly. The game begins as many Ys games do. Adol and Dogi are on a ship sailing towards their next destination, which happens to be in the region of Celceta. It takes place 3 months after Adol's first known story in Asteria, which are shown in Ys 1 and 2. As such, Nordics is one of Adol's earliest games canonically, and as such, unlike say Monstrum Nox where Adol is in his mid-20s, this is an Adol with less experience at the age of 17, but still has that undoubted hunger for adventure. Which is why I was surprised in how connected this game felt to the wider series, whether it be through small references or indeed dialogue aimed at continuity. There's clearly been attempts by Falcom in recent Ys games to tie the later entries into the wider world building of this universe that Adol adventures in. It's still mostly standalone, as many Ys games are, and you can definitely enjoy this as your first game if you have no history with the franchise, but veterans who have played other entries will find some moments of familiarity on offer. And I like this. Falcom already have another franchise in Trails that is a widely connected saga spanning 13 games at present. Why not do something similar with Ys, but at a smaller scale? Ys doesn't have to replicate Trails, but there's no reason why it can't use the history that the franchise has rightly earned. I think Ys 10 Nordics hits that balance really well, while introducing yet another land to the wider mythos of the series. That area soon comes into view. It doesn't take long for the ship to pass the imposing Orbilia Gulf, which is stewarded by a group of Normans called the Balta Sea Force. Unfortunately for Adol and co, the ship is apprehended by the Sea Force, with their warrior Princess Kaja having a one-on-one with Adol himself. The captain is killed for not paying a toll, and Adol, along with everyone else aboard the ship, are forced to make port at the town of Karnak. It's here where Adol is soon cuffed to Kaja by a rope of mana, and the two of them are forced to work together to discover the mysteries of the Gulf. Now, the beginning of Ys 10 is the weakest part of the game for me. It's one of the only negatives I had noted down. I'd say it takes about 2 chapters before it really gets going. There's a fair chunk of exposition in the early stages. Now, I have a tolerance for this, and do think it's justified in order to build up this new area, the traditions, the politics at play, and so on. It's important to set the stage first before the story can take off. But it is undoubtedly hefty for an Ys game. There's a fair amount of talking in those early stages, but it's nothing egregious in my eyes. And I am fine with it doing that if the story can deliver. So, does it do that? In my opinion, Ys 10 Nordics presents a superb story, one of my favourites in the entire franchise. I enjoyed the developments, I latched on to the overall theme and message of the game, and it just made me feel good overall, like there was real satisfaction from watching this narrative play out in front of me, so it's a thumbs up on my voting board. Granted, Ys 10 Nordics would not be as good as it is without a key character. Just like Ys 8, which had the excellent Dana to enrich the experience and give the story more depth, Kaja takes on the same role for Nordics. Her role is so important to the success of this story, and I am happy to say that she fulfills that, excels at it even. You see, up till now, Dana was by far and away my favourite female lead in the Ys series. But Kaja, man, It's so close between them that I'd have to say they're on par with each other. I can't pick between them though, because that is pretty much an impossible task. Both of them excel in different ways, but there's no doubt that I loved what Kaja brought to the table, both as a partner to Adol and in her own personal story. The chemistry she has with Adol in particular, who is essentially a mute protagonist most of the time outside of prompts chosen by the player in this game, is a joy to behold, and I hope that other players will latch on to her as much as I did. In fact, the supporting cast overall is pretty good. None of them come close to Kaja, mind you, but they all have their own stories to tell, they all develop fairly well over the course of the game, and just like in the previous modern titles, you've got a host of side quests tied to them. The focus placed on the supporting members is good, and thankfully Dogi is included in that. He gets moments to shine too, as he should. By the way, he's still only playable in Ys 7 for the mainline game, so I think I'm speaking for many people when I do say this. Falcom, give some more love to Dogi. Now, because of the mana cuffs, Adol and Kaja effectively team up for this entire game as shield brethren. In short, this becomes the narrative justification which leads to the new combat style, gameplay that is likely going to be used in a couple more games if the pattern holds. The idea in Ys 10 is that you can switch control between Adol and Kaja on the fly, who have their own abilities and combat style, but when you press and hold the right trigger, it switches control to duo mode. When this happens, Adol and Kaja combine their attacks and also have specific skills tied to that mode. The duo mode is ultimately the innovation for this newest adventure, and it places a lot more importance on guarding. Perfect dodges no longer exist. You can still dodge, but you don't get the bonuses like you did before. Instead, Ys 10's combat is about reacting to what the opponent does. For instance, if they flash red, you guard in duo mode to block damage, and if you manage to block at the right time, you'll parry the attack, have the opportunity to hit them with a powerful counter, and also build up something called the Revenge Gauge. The Revenge Gauge is the core mechanic of duo mode, as it will multiply the damage of your partnered skills, and you can increase the max multiplier by finding books and tomes in the world. Generally speaking, you want to balance your offense and defense so that you can build up the Revenge Gauge and then blast an enemy or horde down with one fell swoop. That's not to say that Adol and Kaja are useless by themselves. There's plenty of import put on making sure both of them are equipped sufficiently at every moment, and you do get some really cool skills for each of them. There's also an augment light system called Mana Seeds, where you unlock nodes and put in these seeds that grant stat increases and sometimes new abilities. Depending on how you combine them, you'll also get some passive abilities as well. Now, in addition to flashing red, some enemies will flash blue, and at this moment you simply dash at them and dodge automatically. This also gives you a charged attack that you can unleash when you choose. This pretty much substitutes for the perfect dodge mechanic in the team-based games, and it works really well. In fact, the combat mechanics as a collective complement each other wonderfully. In short, I loved this combat. It maintains the fun and frantic pace of an Ys game, but at the same time has brought something fresh to the table. Players can now express their skills in a different way. It is so satisfying to work with, and if nothing else, it acts as a great foundation for the next game in the pipeline. I also feel that the combat maintains its fun because of all the extra skills and items you find as the adventure progresses, from those aforementioned tomes for the Revenge Gauge to new skills and even ultimate weapons. And the only way you can find these is by exploring. And this is where Ys 10 Nordics shines the brightest. The world of Ys 10 is massive, and that's because you'll be sailing around the vast and open Obelia Gulf with your own ship. Yeah, that's right, Adol has a ship in this game. This ship pretty much becomes your self-controlled transport from island to island. You'll be sailing the waves, taking out rogue fleets, scanning out the wildlife, finding secrets. Man, it was the best part about the game for me. It felt to me that this was the natural evolution of the Ys series on display. Everything that the franchise represents, that sense of adventure, the joy of exploration, it was all leading to something like this. And I hope that the future games will maintain an approach like Nordics. The Ys series is just made for worlds like this one. Now, like any good seafaring game, the ship not only acts as a hub where characters gather as you gradually build up your crew, but you can also freely upgrade it. All your facilities are here, and you can gradually improve parameters of the ship like firepower, hull strength and maneuverability as long as you have the right materials. It does start a bit finicky in terms of controls, but that only gets better as you upgrade the ship itself. And because of this tangible progression, I wanted to explore every nook and cranny of this world. The most fun I got from Ys 10 was just hopping from island to island and clearing out all the treasure and secrets it had to offer. Even when you're on land, traversal is fun. Addo and Kaja have a host of accessories they can use, like mana lassos to bridge gaps or even a goddamn hoverboard to move around with speed and style. It's just so satisfying to clean out every area you find, especially when the level design is strong in the majority. And Falcom really put a good balance between exploration tied to the ship and exploration tied to moving around on foot. There's been a real effort to make both mediums important throughout the game, evidenced most notably by the island recaptures. This effectively substitutes for the raids in games like Ys 8. Some islands will be protected by a force field and you retake it in a dual stage format. You first take out pylons on the outside of your ship and then land with Addo and Kaja to retake the fort directly. Now, I've said before that while I adore Ys 8, the raids were my biggest issue of the game. I just didn't like the idea of stopping my progress to go back and fight waves of enemies. Nordics, I feel, does a much better job of it overall. Initially, you're finding these events as you travel. You're not having to go out of your way to do them. It's a natural part of the flow of the game, so that already is a plus. And secondly, they're just way more fun. Combining the gameplay of both the ship and the duo protags while also having some pretty good design within the forts themselves. They're often different in structure with mini puzzles tied to them as you go through. And just like the raids, you'll get a rating and rewards depending on your performance. You know, there's way more that I could go over with exploration, but I'd rather let you see it yourself because, like I say, it was the most fun I had with the game. For an entry that basically adopted a new approach to gameplay, this is such a strong starting point. And I must say, I know Falcom games aren't great with their graphics normally, but this game looks good on the PC, despite being made primarily with the Switch in mind. It's colourful, it's got nice detail to the environments, there's some really awesome sequences in the game too. And the in-house engine is really coming into its own, you can see it in the cutscenes. I will note that I saw the odd graphical glitch here and there, like a part of the environment flashing for like a millisecond, and it did happen quite frequently, so I hope that gets fixed if possible, but otherwise, I was enamoured with the exploration. It made me feel like I was playing Wind Waker again, which happens to still be my favourite Zelda game to date. Just this feeling of riding the waves, finding secrets and covering the mysteries of this vast land, all while building up a crew from zero, it is just, superb. Especially if you've got bopping tunes to keep you keen throughout. How's the music, you say? Well, it's an Ys game. You know, it's great by default. I mean, you heard one of the songs at the start of the video, it's chock full of awesome tunes like that. As a collective, I wouldn't say it's as strong as, say, Ys Origin or Ys 7, but it's in that bracket slightly below. But if you're simply looking at it in a bubble, then there's nothing to dislike about it. Ys is known for its music and Nordics just continues that legacy. Honestly, I could gush about this game all day, but I want to stop here for fear of spoiling, but also because I'd rather let you play it yourself. I'll say this as I close out though. I adore Ys 10 Nordics. It is wonderful. Like I say, this here is my game of the year so far, and it will take something special to beat it. As an Ys fan, Nordics was pretty much everything I wanted. Maybe a slightly slow start, admittedly, but when it gets into its stride, it's just Ys, man. It's just Ys. And that's all I need. No other franchise does adventure like Ys. And if Falcom keeps putting out bangers like Nordics, I'll continue to sing its praises for as long as I play games. Ys 10 Nordics may be a new chapter for the series, but it still maintains its core, brilliant identity. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe for more JRPG content and consider joining my Patreon if you're interested. Peace.